let me start off by saying this. I think that clearly there is a lot of issues going on right now. I know when it's bad enough that we had a space launch, for crying out loud, and it was barely covered in the news. When we have a story going on in China where Hong Kong is basically not a thing anymore, and that's not in the news. All this that's happening right now with the protests and the riots has actually overtaken so much that I haven't even heard anything about the coronavirus. Really, you have to do some serious digging.
Yeah.
It's like gone away.
Yeah.
So this is definitely prevalent. Definitely something that we need to talk about. I got to say this to Fred. I'm just going to give my little spiel on it, and I want you to talk about it as well. The first thing I got to say is with the protests, and I am all for everything that they are going for when it comes to doing it peacefully. I think that's a relatively normal opinion for most people. I have seen, and this is a little alarming to me, I have seen an alarming positive response to the violence that broke out because of the murder of George Floyd. I can see where it's easy for tempers to spill over in this situation, especially because it's like enough is enough, right? At this point, should have been a long time ago. But here we are again. The thing with the riots, and I'll get back to the more of it in a second, but the thing with the riots is I have a hard time believing a lot of these people are out there trying to bring a positive light on this situation. There may be some, but anyone that partakes in violence or destroying of innocent businesses, in my opinion, is kind of doing a disservice to the whole message of, and then that should be the thing, right? We should be bringing a message to the forefront, which is we got to stop police brutality against all races, but we got to stop it. We got to stop racism. I know it's something that's a huge thing. How do we stop racism? It probably can't ever stop it, but we got to at least do something to make a dent, right? Especially when it comes to police brutality. But here's my thing. I'll say this first. I don't know what it's like to walk around in the shoes of an African American or any other race. I don't. I'm a white male, and so I walk around in these shoes, and so I'm not going to pretend I know what it's like maybe to be treated in a different way. Now, I've been treated unfairly at times, absolutely, but I'm not trying to compare. But I am entitled to give my thoughts on the situation regardless of the color of my skin, so I'm going to do that. And here's the thing. I want justice for George Floyd. I absolutely do. I want justice for the police officers that are being attacked right now, that are having to go out every single day not knowing if they're going to make it back, even more so than they might in any other time. Constant violence taken upon these guys. I would not want to be a police officer knowing that the color of my uniform, my badge, has put this giant target on my back all of a sudden, when my job is to protect those who are trying to hurt me. I want justice for them. I want justice for Tony Timpa. I want justice for Daniel Harris and for Daniel Shaver, Michael Dean, Eric Reason. I can go on and on and on. Some people are like, who are those people? Those are both white and black people that were murdered by cops unarmed. And it's not right that some of those names don't resonate with some people, because I'm not for anyone getting killed by a cop unarmed in any situation. There's no reason for it. There is racism, and there are terrible people in every single profession. There always will be. That's something that we can't get rid of. But what we can do is make a change. I saw a protest that was taking place in Minneapolis today. Put on my Twitter. A ton of people getting down, sitting down, fists in the air, chanting, no violence. But I mean just a lot of people, right? That right there, that's how you protest. You don't protest by going in and ruining someone's business. You don't protest by going in and ruining the National College Football Hall of Fame and defacing monuments that have been there forever and ever. That doesn't get anything. If anything, that pushes the message the exact opposite direction of what I think some people are trying to achieve here. It's chaos right now. It really is. And the fact that looting and rioting was the initial response, I think, was what got me. I was like, that shouldn't be the initial response. I understand that maybe some of the earlier arguments that didn't involve violence have fallen on deaf ears at times, but you got to keep going. I think that's the thing, the persistence. If Martin Luther King taught anybody anything, it was persistence. Because things were going to change overnight, they were going to change over time. That's going to be the case here as well. Bottom line for me here is this. I think we need leadership, first of all. I'm not sure. We haven't seen a lot of good leadership through this whole thing. That goes from every level. Yeah. It really hasn't been that good. We need unity, and we need regard for human life. It blows my mind how many people in situations George Floyd, the officer had no regard for his life. The Dallas store owner that was nearly beaten to death, no one had regard for his life. No one helped out in that situation. You're allowed to be against a cop putting his knee on a guy's neck for 9 minutes, and at the same time, you're also allowed to be against people committing more violence and rioting and looting and all this. I hate that single-minded view that there has to be one or the other. You can be a human being and believe that two wrongs don't make a right, because they don't. And that's where we are right now when George Floyd's own son comes out and says, this is not how my father would want to be remembered with all this violence and everything like that. It's not progress to me. And when I bring in sports, this is just like you said, to open it up. This is where sports triumph all the time. I think Patrick Mahomes said it about as good as anybody today. Go in that locker room, everyone of all races joins together for one common goal. And that's what sports is. That's what's so great about sports, because we have black, we have white, we have Hispanic, we have Asian, what have you. Go down the row, and you can say all these people are working towards one common goal. We didn't see color here. We didn't go. We couldn't. I can't work with you because you're white or you're black. I can work with you because you're on my team, and we're trying to achieve something. Yeah. If that I know that sounds like pretty simple, but if that mindset right there could be how people come together in real life, can you imagine the change that could be enacted? So we're in a tough situation, bottom line. And I get there's people that are like, you're insensitive, because I've already had that said to me. You're insensitive because you don't understand why these people are causing violence. No. I'm not going to be able to have someone justify to me rioting and looting the way that's happening right now. People can go on and on and on. I just don't see it. There's better ways to do it, and we've seen that. There are people that have spoken out about this that have, I think, fallen on some open ears for once. You know, it bothered me, like I said, that it was kind of the initial response. And you know, I just don't. I like to tell those people that say, well, they try to back up the looting and rioting to such a degree. I kind of say, well, you know, put yourself in that situation. Well, let's say if it was you or your parents or your grandparents that owned a small business, and it was broken into, destroyed so much so. Let's think about it now. By the way, in a time where many businesses are just now reopening, and you got to close again. That to me is obviously crossing the line. I am all for, and like I said, justice for George Floyd should be something that happens. Justice for those other names are something that should happen. A lot of people haven't heard of some of those other names I said, which is it's not right. Anyone that is killed by police and police brutality is involved, and you're unarmed and all that needs to be forefront. That needs to be brought up. And racism, I hate to say this is true, but it is completely alive in today's country. We know that. It shouldn't be. Yep. It probably always will be. Again, it's something that I wish we could just eradicate. But you can't change everyone's mindset. Unfortunately, I think we're moving in the right direction, regardless of, you know, maybe people are like, what are you talking about? What are you seeing out there? Yeah, but look deeper here. Yeah. When this is all said and done, we're going to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up what would you do if you were a small business owner. There actually was response from one Minnesota family originally from India, where the owner said, I can rebuild. He lost his life.
Right.
I think that's the difference in mindset of some people, though.
Which it is, but for me, that should never have to be said. You know, you should never have to rebuild, especially for something that you had no part in.
Right, but then you can also say there also shouldn't be these protests because there shouldn't have been the murder.
Yes, absolutely, but no, that's the thing. None of this justifies to me causing more damage and more violence. If it were somehow progressing a message, which I don't think it is, but if it were, then maybe you look at it a little different. I don't know, but I think this has caused so much more diversity than it ever should have.
But I can also see the argument, because there's also an argument of the police only understand things in violence because that's what they're doing. So maybe this gets the point across from the protesters.
Right.
Like, so I mean,
there's some police. Police.
Right. No.
That's another point that
and apparently in Minneapolis, this isn't the first time that they've had this.
Right.
Especially with 2 of the 4 officers fired. Yeah. They have a track record of this.
There needs to be some sort of whether it's better hiring, better background checks into everything.
Yep.
And not turning a blind eye towards things that have happened in the past regarding personally to some of these people. But the thing is that I want to get across is and we all need to understand this, is not all cops are bad cops.
Right.
There's a lot, I would have to think, the majority go out there every day, try to enforce the law in the right way. They're actually there to protect us in every situation. And it's like you said, is there a bad apple? Always, there always is. It's unfortunate that it has to happen in this situation. What blows my mind is that the cop that did this, why in the world? I mean, it's one of those things where you're just like, first of all, how could this happen in today's day and age? Like, he knows he's just going to sit there. It's like he threw his life away on purpose. Like, he knows that I'm going to murder this guy. Maybe he didn't intend to murder him, but I'm going to put my knee on this guy's neck for 9 minutes, and did he really think maybe I won't get recorded or something? But I felt like the mindset that goes into some of these people, it's unbelievable. And
maybe part of it's the training for these officers, because there was also a video that TMZ tweeted out from the LAPD while they were trying to corral a protester, and there was actually one officer who put his knee directly on the throat. And I don't know if that's part of their training, but the difference between that and what happened in Minneapolis is there was another officer there who was also, working to arrest this protester, who saw the knee on the throat, grabbed it, and scooted it down to the back.
Right.
And that's where part of the problem is with the Minneapolis thing, is there were 3 other officers there, and they were all complacent, which I believe the chief of police up there actually said that, used that exact word yesterday.
And to me, they're just as guilty for sitting alive for that long. I mean, come on. I've seen plenty of cops and plenty of videos where his knee is on another guy's neck for like 30 seconds.
Right.
But you're sitting there for 9. Well, the guy's telling you can't breathe. That's just cold-blooded murder. This has been one hell of a year. Let me just say that, Jason. We're sitting here June 1st, and everything that has happened in 2020 already and continues to happen is it's really unbelievable. But like I said earlier, we got issues in Hong Kong. I mean, that should be the number one story in the world. And I think a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? That's crazy that that's the case, that we have worldwide issues of that magnitude. Yeah, China, that would be in any other time. That would be the biggest story easily. But I'm blessed, I think, to have even this platform right here that I have, because not and you are too. I mean, not everybody can come on radio for 2 hours every day and talk about stuff that's going on as much as most people would like. So we get this opportunity, and I'm blessed to have it, and that's why I like to come on here with something like this happening and kind of give my 2 cents on it. Whether it matters or not in the long run, who knows? But I do think that it is important for, hey, you know what? This is the country of the free, right? You are allowed to go out there and assemble freely. Peacefully assemble. That should be the case. If you want to go out there, and anyone that's listening, if you're planning on going out there for when they do the demonstration here in Stillwater or Norman, whatever, I'm all for it. Just the second that you start promoting more violence and more separation is when I have an issue, because the moment we start as a whole, as a people, start viewing race as unity instead of division, that's when we start moving forward.
Yeah.
If that's going to be the case ever, I don't know. But like I said, when this is all said and done, I think it's one step closer to where we need to be, because people are coming together right now. Again, that's why, to me, sports is sometimes the great equalizer. It really is. And I've never sat there and, for one of the favorite teams that I've rooted for all my life, said, why is he on this team? Because he's got this skin color. Never once.
And that's the great thing, because I overheard the conversation being had with Casey Nunn, and he said that it never dawned on him that to have that approach of, he's one of how many ever offense coordinators in Power 5 conference who are a person of color. He's like, his dad always taught him, be the best.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Be the best and you will be discovered. That's what you should go by. And I'm glad you brought up the whole white privilege thing, because did it used to exist? Absolutely. And during a lot of history, okay? But that was forced into the world at that time. Right now, when people say, and I've been, like you, told it before, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a white male. You have white privilege. I'm like, listen. I've never once felt privileged over anyone with color of their skin, and I've never once thought that they were above me.
Right.
Every single person I see, regardless of color of skin, I don't immediately go up and start making assumptions. It's, how are you? Let's be friends, whatever. It's not the 1950s anymore. and that's why people say that we as white people need to, and if you're a white person, you have to feel some sort of guilt about all this and everything. I'm like, this again, this is a new day and age. When you look at it, I've seen a lot of people say, hey, being silent is the same thing as showing your true racism colors. All I'm like, that's not the case. People don't have to talk about things if they don't want to. I feel like there's a lot of people that feel this need now to come out and say something about this, whether they ever wanted to or not. That's why, I'm completely for. Mike Gundy released a statement. Coach Boynton released a statement.
Jim Phil.
Yeah, you can go on. Yeah. Coaches, and then the university itself. It's been talked about all day on this station. We've been able to kind of say our piece, and that's the thing is, I just don't want anyone to, and there are these people, and to me, these are the ones that need to check themselves before thinking this, just assuming that somebody is racist because of the color of their skin, because that, I think, is what is some of this division here that we're seeing. That's not the case. If you judge somebody before you get to truly know them, that's where issues start to rise. And I think that is as much alive right now in the country as racism is. If you judge anybody for any reason before you actually get to know the person, that to me is just as much of an issue right now. But again, I'll make this statement and then we'll be done with it. We'll talk sports. And you can say whatever, but I'm done with it after this. I feel like, again, that once we all start realizing that nothing is going to get fixed or even be moved in a positive way until there's actual unification. We can sit here and talk about unification all we want. So we got to do this, we got to do this. But until action is taken in a way that doesn't negatively affect other people's innocent lives, by the way, I'm not saying that because I hate to see that. Now, that's when, and that's what I think Martin Luther King was trying to get out so much when in his time. You have to think right now, if he were alive, there's no way he'd be supporting all this. Well, and the mayor of Atlanta, her speech was fantastic. If you haven't watched it, I encourage anyone to Google search that, watch the whole thing. She said it perfectly. I mean, and it's true. Get out there and bully the politicians at the polls. I mean, and people be like, what is my one vote? Your one vote matters, I promise. Get out there, and that's how you start making a change. Because for too long, people have not exercised that right enough. And people slip through the cracks that should never be in positions that they're in. And that goes for law enforcement, that goes for politicians, what have you. That's one way you can make a difference. Another way is some of these peaceful protests that I've seen, which I assume and hope is going to happen in Stillwater and Norman when they're planned, make a big difference, okay? Martin Luther King and his movement wasn't just talked about for no reason. It made a difference because it was peacefully done and it was effective, okay? Now, it didn't eradicate anything, but it sure did make a step in the right direction. And if we can get all this to be focused on one common goal, which I don't think it is yet, because there are a lot of people that are, in my opinion, taking advantage of this situation. If we can all somehow get towards one common goal here in these protests, you're going to start seeing some change eventually. That's the problem right there, is that it doesn't happen immediately. And so many of us want instant gratification. I'm guilty of it. I want it with sports, and a lot of other things. And I think that's the case here as well. We want change now. We need it now. And as good as that sounds, and as good as that sounds in a chant, I'm sorry, but it's going to take some time. That's the hard truth to swallow. But I don't know about you, but you kind of say, I think we're kind of inching that way a little bit forward. It looks like there is a lot of negativity going on right now. Change needs to happen. That's imminent. It needs to happen. You just got to give it some time. We got to keep working towards it as well. Yeah. This needs to be a situation that's never forgotten. George Floyd needs to be etched in people's minds as let's remember every day, and let's keep moving forward towards it. That's why I've said it over and over, and even before we lost sports, that's what made sports different, is, you and I can go home and after this and sit down and root on multiple races of people in one common goal, and it really is. It's like, it's really that simple. I mean, it is. I don't think that either of us and a lot of people have never really sat down and been like, there's too many white guys, too many black guys on this team. What? I mean, really, it's just something that doesn't cross the mind of a normal person, I would think. So, it's great. That's like you said, if we could apply that mindset to life, we would be moving forward in a big way.